Episode 6 of Kicked Back, everyone. And for all the United fans tuning in, congratulations. And for all the Liverpool fans tuning in, our hearts and thoughts and prayers are with you all. Liam.
It's always next week. You've won a lot recently. Just is okay.
We've been saying this for 6 episodes now. It's the beginning of the season. And I can't wait to clip what we said at the beginning of the season about United. Mm-hmm. How we don't think it's the end of the world. They're not getting relegated. And, the fans don't need to jump to all these conclusions. They're just fine. And it's going to be the same thing with Liverpool.
It was funny yesterday. Going into the United game, I did kind of feel like they were going to win.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. It just kind of felt like, okay, he didn't?
No, good for you. I was like, man, this would be worse for United now.
I even looked on my sports box to see. It's like, I wonder if I should put a couple of pounds on this. No, I didn't. I actually put it on Mo Salah to score.
Okay, so you still
so that worked out to me at the end. But yeah, Liverpool going through some injuries right now. Like the midfield definitely wasn't ideal yesterday. So we'll get into it, I guess, a little deeper into the show. But it's going to be okay, Liverpool. You're still going to make Champions League.
Everyone's fine, guys. Everyone's fine. I think off the top of the show, I want to give a shout out to Patrick Vieira and the Crystal Palace squad. Because I think what Patrick Vieira has done with this team is so awesome, how he's instilled almost this type of mentality and spirit into his squad that have given them the ability to think that they can compete, but also help teams around them recognize, and even fans around them recognize, they're a contender.
Yeah, I think they're definitely an underrated team.
Yes.
Like, it's kind of funny to think because I remember growing up, Palace were one of those teams like they would come up and get relegated and then just kind of a bit of a yo-yo club. And now they've been in the Premier League for 10 years. They've definitely established themselves as a competitive, threatening team every week. Like, I'm curious to see how this season develops. Like, I think they're going to be probably somewhere between 9th and 12th-ish like that. That seems like a mid-table team, definitely. But I mean, down the road, like, there's no reason to think this team can't eventually just compete for maybe a Europa League spot or a Europa Conference League spot.
I totally agree. I think, kind of going off of what you just said, Liam, I think consistency will be key for them. And I'm curious to see how long they can keep this just high intensity, entertaining, skillful football up. They came back against Aston Villa. They were a goal down. And it's just awesome to see. They have such talented players. Zaha, Eze. These guys at some point completely annihilated Aston Villa on the pitch.
Yeah, and he was even you look at the defense, like Mitchell and Anderson were so good, and Gay's a really good defender as well. Played a couple of times for England now too. And I love the way Patrick Vieira is just establishing himself as such a great manager and someone who can adapt to any situation. You look at what they've done, Arsenal, first game of the season, tough game to go and win. They lost obviously, but they played pretty well. And last week they changed into a Liverpool team they had to basically sit there for 90 minutes and just take their opportunities, and they got an opportunity and they scored. They could have probably even had a couple more. They played really well. And then this week they're playing Aston Villa, and they know they can go and win that game, and they just give it to them. They absolutely just put it on.
I love it.
Zaha was
phenomenal.
Yeah, and it's funny because he actually missed the penalty, didn't he, in the game?
Yes, and he got the rebound.
He got the rebound on it. But they play with such energy and such high work ethic that this team is very entertaining to watch.
That's exactly it. I think I might be tuning into the majority of Crystal Palace's games that I can catch because it was fun football. Even when you look at the last goal that they scored, Mitchell played it into Zaha. Zaha had that unreal flick, quick football, and then Mitchell's ball in for that goal was probably one of the best in-swinging balls I've seen in a long time. And Mateta, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, with the finish from top to bottom. Just when you look at what happened in that sequence, the work off the ball, the work on the ball, the skill set that the players have, and how they were able to just bury that game. I finished watching that game. I'm like, yo, I love Patrick Vieira. I'm kind of low-key cheering for Crystal Palace right now.
I am too, and I wanted to get into this a little later as well, but just the amount of teams right now that are in form, you have Brighton, Brentford too, and now Palace you can put in that group, and teams that kind of people respected coming into the season, but definitely had a team like Aston Villa ahead of all of them, right? And now there was something I wanted to talk about with Crystal Palace as well, and it's completely slipped my mind now as I go to say
okay.
it.
But you're going to get it in a couple of seconds.
We'll switch over to Villa.
Okay, I want to, because you brought up a great point on this show that Steven Gerrard should maybe be held to a little bit of a higher standard in terms of him being a manager, because sometimes the way Aston Villa performs, it's not on par with how they should be performing. Now listen to this stat, Liam.
Okay.
Aston Villa's loss against Crystal Palace, that was the 6th time since last season they lost a game in which they led, which means to me they have bad habits in that team that have now carried over into this season that they have not addressed, and it's starting to affect them again.
I think the tactics are a big part of it.
Yeah.
I just don't think defensively they're a good enough team to play that the way they do. Like, they want to have the midfielders created with like McGinn and Ramsey, and then you have Lucas Daney, I believe you say his name, Digney, whatever it is, and then Cash like pushing up the field, and it just doesn't work when you have Tyrone Mings and Cancer there. Like, Cancer's like a good player, but Mings is a bit of a liability, and there's like Diego Carlos like coming off with injury now is like a big thing for them. They almost need to switch different formation, it feels like. It just doesn't seem to work for them the way they want it to work, and it's going to take Gerrard some time, I guess, if he wants to switch it up. But like next week, they can't go and lose again. And, tonight they play Bolton Wanderers, my team. So we'll see. Like, it's a perfect time for us to play them. But,
you're celebrating.
Yeah. But I just, it's just a tough time to be a Villa fan because you have so much optimism going into the season, and now the only team you've beat is Everton, and really you've had a soft start to the season. You have Bournemouth, and like, granted, playing against a newly promoted team that early in the season away from home is tough. Then you have Everton, and you kind of squeak by them in your first home game, and then you have Palace, and Palace, you should be putting up a better fight against a team who's competing for you for those European spots.
Managers have the role that they do, and they make the paychecks that they do is because they have to be better in tactical changes, formations. When you play a team, things may need to switch. That's exactly why teams have managers. And for all the Gerrard stands out there, by no means are we, talking shit on him. We love him from even his playing days. It's just he needs to maybe, I don't know, Liam, what do you think? Take a different approach, reflect a little bit more, watch more film. I don't know. Gerrard, you tell us if you're listening.
I think that's it. Like, it's clear now this team's defensive awareness is horrendous, to put it politely. And they just need to maybe take a bit more pride in that, I think, as a team as a whole. And they have the players to be attacking. Like Ollie Watkins is a really good player, and he scored on Saturday. You have McGinn, who I said, like Ramsey, go on. Leon Bailey had a great strike in that game, hit the crossbar. And it's just, you know what? If like as a team, you can come back and play better as a defensive unit and then just push forward with the ball, maybe just catch teams on the counter-attack more often. And you've got the skill to do it. And now it's just about implementing those new tactics and like pushing forward from here.
Okay. Do you want to go to your game of the week, Manchester City, Newcastle?
Yes. What a game.
I know.
I've been on Newcastle. We're only 3 games in, but like I think they're a good team, and they've really just figured it out how to like push against opponents and like really put them on the brink, and like to do that against Manchester City.
Yes.
I don't know the last time in the Premier League like City was put to the test against a lesser opponent, if you want to call them like that,
Well, give people what they want, Liam. When you had your Newcastle take on the show, everyone loved it. They said that you know the sport because you called this, and don't sleep on them. And they're a team who found a way to come back against the big guys in the Prem. And you got to give credit to where credit is due. And I think that that's not an easy thing to do against not only the aura of Manchester City, but the big players that are continuously talked about on this team, and even their manager. It takes balls to do what Newcastle did.
It does take that. And it was just a perfect strategy. And it's interesting the way Newcastle play, in the sense of they use Saint Maximum to his maximum potential.
I love that. Oh my gosh, yeah, this is great.
That was a good one.
More of those. Liam, at least one per show, please.
I had the one last week too. I can't remember what it was, but that one came to my head. Saint Maximum, what a great performance from him. Like as soon as he would get the ball, it was electric. Like it was so fun to watch him, and he's not just playing against no one. He's playing against Kyle Walker, who many regard as like a world-class right back. And Walker played well to an extent, but also just the way they weren't afraid. The fearlessness of the team was what was so apparent to me.
St. Maximin, one thing, he's a menace on the pitch.
Yeah.
And like anyone, even if you didn't play professional football, you can just imagine going against him in a pickup football game. You know that this is one guy you would not want running at you for many reasons. One, you wouldn't want to cover him or mark him because he's dangerous off the ball too, and he's a unit. But man, his speed and his skill and his vision and everything, I'm just like, this guy is a complete package.
Yeah, he's one of those players you kind of look at when you walk on. You're like, oh, he's wearing the headband, the hair.
He's feeling it today.
Yeah, and he's like, I'll play left back. I'll play the other side.
Coach, sub.
So just on the tactics of Newcastle, I thought the midfield all played really well, like Joe Linton and Bruno and Willock, all played well. But it's interesting the way Newcastle play in the sense that, so Dan Burn isn't like a speedy left back for them, and he sits really far back and allows St. Maximin to kind of do his thing. But on the other side, Kieran Trippier essentially plays like, I know we'll talk about his free kick, but he essentially plays almost as a winger, like he plays a full-on wing back, and it's interesting that style it's completely opposite from one side of the pitch to the other, and it kind of takes a good manager to realize the strengths of his team. And that's what Eddie Howe has done, I think, is just putting players in the positions to really emphasize what they can do to like a full potential. And you know what, if I'm a player over in Europe or like looking to kind of break into the Premier League and I see Newcastle knocking on the door and like talking, it's like, oh, well, maybe this is like kind of not the future of the Premier League. That's a bit too hard to take, but they're a team who I think in a few years is going to be right up there, like competing for Champions League spots. And obviously they have the money now to go and do that. But just the manager for me is Eddie Howe is so good at just bringing out the best of his players. And he did the same at Bournemouth too, to like, when he was there, like Bournemouth, like they're a smaller team in the Premier League, and he was able to just take that team to a good Premier League standard, and unfortunately it didn't work out. They got relegated, but now he's at Newcastle, and I just really like the future of this team right now.
I love it, and I can't wait for everyone to hear it, because a lot of Newcastle fans online, maybe Newcastle fans aren't getting the content they deserve, so they just immediately went to yours.
I will give you all the content. I will promote Newcastle all day long.
Trippier free kick, man.
Barry Beckham. Oh. That's what they call him.
I mean, for me, the most iconic free kick of all time will be Roberto Carlos, because
I should have wanted to counter that, but you
okay, because for me, Roberto Carlos I just remember my jaw dropping from how far out he was to how long his run was to the bend, from it being on the outside of the foot, just skill level and how difficult it is. He gets 10 out of 10, but Trippier's was just finessed. There was nothing any goalie in the world could do to save that. And not only was it perfectly placed, but there was some firepower on that ball. And I love to see the combo of those two being executed.
So my dad and I watched this game together, and Trippier actually scored a goal similar in the World Cup semi-final against Croatia. And it was almost identical, actually. And the thing that I thought about this free kick, what made it a little bit more special, was he shot it on the same side that Ederson was stood.
Yep.
And Ederson still couldn't get there. And it's just like, how precise and how good was that free kick? So it was really good to watch. So my favorite free kick.
I want to YouTube this and
okay. So I have two.
Pick one.
Okay, but I'll do the first one quickly.
Okay.
So JJ Okocha versus Aston Villa, actually, 2004 League Cup semi-final at the Reebok Stadium. It was like right on the corner of the box, and I kid you not, he somehow curled the ball with the outside of his foot around the outside of the wall and got it on the inside of the post. It was unbelievable. I'll try and post a clip of it.
We're absolutely going to.
And the other one is David Beckham versus Greece at Old Trafford. I think that was 2001 or like early 2002. It was to send him to the 2002 World Cup. That was a special one. Like I don't remember the moment particularly well, but you see it all the time, and just the moment and the celebration was so cool I'm
watching the JJ Okocha's one.
Did you just watch it?
Yeah, I pulled it up because I had to see it.
This was the last time Bolton played Aston Villa in a cup competition, and that wasn't even it. There was a way better one. So go to the end. Oh, this is it. This is it.
Okay. I mean, yeah, already when you look at
the angle,
it's nuts.
This is so good they named him twice. I know he's watching again.
To everyone listening, sorry, we're gonna speed this up here in a second. I just had to know what Liam was talking about. Of course, all of David Beckham's free kicks are beautiful. Oh my God.
Like what?
The fact that he went near post from that angle is actually stupid.
It was unbelievable.
Stupid in the most complimentary way. Holy shit. Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Small, and there was like a little, I wonder, he hit that with the outside of his foot / laces.
Yes, and he had to curl it almost around the wall so quickly, but with so much power to sneak it in.
Okay, Liam, you may have a point here. Okay, we're going to ask also the goalie to let that go near post, that's bad.
Yeah.
That's bad goaltending.
Thomas Sorensen, that was.
Yeah, well, sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, okay, Liam's our pun master, everyone, not me. But okay, that was a good one. That was a good one.
Yeah.
We're going to ask the people what they think. Everyone, go watch JJ Okocha's free kick against Aston Villa, and then go watch Roberto Carlos's free kick and tell us which one's better.
And then let us know yours too.
Of course.
Maybe we'll make a TikTok out of this.
One last thing. Let's give some credit to Manchester United in this game because Manchester City. Yeah. My goodness, my brain's out to lunch today. Manchester City in this game because regardless of what Newcastle was doing, they still found a way to get to get back into the game. Kevin De Bruyne's third pass, or his pass into the game leading goal, I believe it was. He megged a player on the way. Like his pass literally went through a player and into the perfect slotted position. And to me, there's just no conversation around the best midfielder in the world. Yes, Modric, but Kevin De Bruyne in my book's just a little notch higher.
I think he's essentially the next one, right? Like Modric kind of had it now. Yes. It's times are changing, but then again, Modric, I didn't see the game against Real Madrid, but by all accounts, he was pretty good for them this weekend.
I mean, he's always good, right? Yeah. We're not taking anything away from Modric.
So De Bruyne, I put in my notes actually. I thought he was fairly quiet-ish for like large portions of the game, but he showed up big time when they needed him to. And it just shows the quality on this Manchester City team. And it's kind of poetic. I'll call it poetic that Newcastle want to be City, right? Like they want to be the best. And it just kind of shows them as like, you can't just let off the gas for 2 minutes and then they come and score 2 goals. And De Bruyne played a huge part in both of them. And it just said it. I think it's the time in a row now. Big time players make big time plays, and like Haaland showed up when they needed to. De Bruyne, and it was just quality from City when they really needed to show up. They turned it up, and they did the same last season when they played Aston Villa in the last game of the season to win the league too. Like you just can't write them off at all. Like they're just too good. They're just way too good.
Haaland, second in the Prem right now with 3 goals. Mm-hmm. Guy's a beast.
Yeah, he's so unique, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's what I think I like about him the most is his physicality, his speed, and just his directness. I think that's my favorite thing about him is like he doesn't want to pass the ball to you. And it's not because he's a selfish player. He just wants, he is a selfish player, I guess, but not in like a bad way, because if he isn't passing, he's probably passing it into the net.
Perfectly said. It's not, he's selfish and it's not an ego thing. No. It's just his style of play.
And that's what makes him world class.
Exactly. And even the goal he scored, I mean, maybe most players are just, putting that in with medium power. That guy blasted that ball. Yeah. Like you could tell, even by the way he scored that, probably gave his team energy because they're like, yo, what just happened?
It did feel like a bit of a punch for City in a way. Like we're in this, like we can do this. Quickly back to Trippier, the red card.
Okay, Let's talk about this great thing. Because they gave him a red initially on that challenge, and then they took it back after VAR and gave him a yellow. Do you think it was a red? We have not talked about this yet, so I'm so curious to hear what Liam has to say.
So here's my argument why I don't think it was a red.
Okay.
One, he wasn't the last man.
Okay, yep.
Secondly, it was the top of his boot that hit De Bruyne on the knee. So I think if you reverse that a little bit, and it's like, okay, if his studs were what hit De Bruyne's knee, 100% red card. But, and I understand why the ref gave it in the moment, because it's a fast-moving play. You kind of look at it and you're like, oh, he just took out his knees. Tackles can't be that high, though. Like, you can't be putting your foot that high to, like, stop somebody. Like, just grab his shirt, almost, you know? And I guess, like, it's easy to say in the moment. You just kind of think of like, oh, I got to tackle this guy, and he's jumping in. But, like, Trippier just isn't that kind of player who's out for blood, and he's not a dirty player. And so I'm going to say no, I don't think it was a red card because of the point of contact with De Bruyne's knee was the top of Trippier's foot, not the bottom of his foot.
I could not agree with you more. I love the way the ref handled it, though.
I did too.
Because I agree with you. I think in the moment when you see something like that, immediately you're like, okay, it might be worse. It might be worse than we even know. And I think him kind of setting that precedent of like unacceptable red card was great. Then you go back to VAR. This is why we have VAR, even though I think it's very inconsistently used. He says, okay, for your reasons exactly, studs weren't up. Because if studs were up, throw him out of the game. Because that's dangerous. And he wasn't the last man back. I think that you made all valid points. And I do think it was a yellow because at the end of the day, he did go for Kevin De Bruyne's body over the ball. And if he had challenged for the ball before, then that would even, in my mind, eliminate a yellow. But he did get Kevin De Bruyne's whole body, stopped him from that penetrating run that he had. But I think the ref, what made me the happiest about this situation, which I'm not always happy about, is the way the ref handled it.
Yeah, and this is, like you said, like one of the good parts of VAR is because it would have ruined the game.
Yeah,
to be honest, it would have ruined the game if he got sent off. And I think there's arguments to both sides. Did we talk about the comments that Mike Dean made last week on the Chelsea pulling the hair?
No.
Or was I talking about with someone else? Okay. So this is
about Cucurella and Romero?
Okay. So it went to VAR, right? To see, right. So what was the ref called? Andrew Taylor, was that his name? It was
Anthony Taylor.
Yeah, Taylor. It was at least Taylor. We know that. So
our boy.
On the play, obviously it wasn't called, and I understand that it's hard to see. Like it was pretty subtle in a way. So on VAR, Mike Dean made the point that he can't say that was a red card as the referee. I guess it's a rule. So what he has to do is then tell Taylor to go and look at the monitor, and then Taylor decides himself. So instead of telling Taylor to go and look at the monitor, Mike Dean decided that he was like, oh, well, I can't do it, so we'll just play. And it's like,
wait, what do you mean he can do it?
So I don't know the exact rule, but he actually wrote about this in a newspaper in England. I guess he has a column. So
important.
Yeah. So he can't make the call on that. So as a VAR, you can only decide if something is a red card, offside, or I guess change from a red card too, or if it's a penalty. So apparently, anyway, or if it like dictates a goal or whatever it is.
But how the hell was that not a red card?
I guess I don't know how that wasn't a red card.
Never in my playing years would a blatant hair pull like that be allowed.
It's almost violent conduct.
It is.
It's borderline violent conduct.
Okay, Liam, let's say we're going for a stroll. Okay, it's a nice day here in Edmonton.
It is beautiful.
And someone comes up to me and pulls my hair and rips me to the ground. Aren't you saying, what the hell just happened to Caroline? That's like physical abuse?
Yeah. Essentially. So his job as the VAR referee is to then tell Taylor to go and look at the monitor, which it also indicates in a way like, hey, this might be a card, might be a red card or whatever, or a foul, whatever you want to call it. And he just didn't do that. And he wrote in his column, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he was like, oh, I spoke to my other colleagues after this and like, I made a mistake. It's like, yeah, you took away 3 points away from a team. And like that, especially those two teams, that's going to come down to it. I said it last week too. Like, I think Chelsea should have won the game anyway, but also for a referee to come out and say that must be so frustrating because Taylor got all the blame. And I don't think it's really his fault when you're looking at it from that way too.
And a change.org petition.
Yes.
Ban him from Chelsea matches for the rest of his life. You know that he got death threats and everything after that.
Yeah.
I mean, but these are things with VAR, and I understand the importance of VAR and video replay in football. It's something that we need, but it's not consistent enough to my liking where it makes sense. There are some moments in some leagues and even international matches where I'm just like, how is that missed? Where did they go wrong? Because it's so obvious to us as viewers. And if this is their only job, how are they getting it wrong?
Yeah, VAR obviously has mixed receptions from people. I like it. I think it's important for the right decisions to be made, but it is frustrating when you have this technology that decisions are made incorrectly. And I think that's what frustrates fans the most is when they see stuff and it's like, how was that not called? Or like even the offside thing, that we could go on forever about this, but the offside thing drives me nuts too. I was like literally the distance between our laptops here, and it's like, that's offside. It's like, I know. No, it's not. That's not offside.
Toenail. Yeah. There was, maybe I'm crazy, but there was one World Cup or Euro Cup I'm thinking of where England had a goal, and did it hit the post and it went crossbar and went down?
Yeah, it went bar down and out. I think it was.
I knew you would know
2010. Yeah, and barring out Frank Lampard. England were losing the game massively anyway, but they had just scored right before this, so it was 4-1 in the first half already. They hit the bar out from Lampard, and it was no goal, and it was like clearly as a goal, and it didn't count. And there's just so many other moments too, like when Henry handballed it to like knock it back in for France when they were in a World Cup qualifier with Ireland, or maybe it was a Euro qualifier, whatever it was cheating. And VAR sees that stuff, and that's why I think it's important so you don't get moments in history. The Maradona hand of God. And obviously, like, legendary. They didn't have that stuff back then, but it changes the game.
That's wherever I get frustrated for VAR. I always think about that England moment because I remember watching that as a fan, and I'm like, how the hell? I mean, I know England was down, but you never know in these tournaments. Momentum is everything. We've seen crazier things happen. So I always think about that moment because, that was a cracker from Lampard.
Yeah.
And that could have completely taken the steam out of Germany and gave it to England.
It changes everything. Yeah. And England probably weren't good enough to beat Germany that year anyway. But you never know, right? Momentum's a crazy thing.
It's your year this year. All right, Chelsea versus Leeds. I want to give a massive shout out to Leeds United because they are third in the Premier League right now. And last season, they were on the brink of relegation. So their transition from last season into this season, even though we're pretty early on into the season, I think deserves a conversation, especially since Rodrigo, who's on their team, he scored the second goal against Chelsea with his head. It was a really nice goal. He is the top goal scorer in the Prem right now with 4 goals. Leeds United making headlines. Liam, thoughts?
They just played with a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
A lot of energy. And this is Jesse Marsch's team now. Like he inherited it towards the end of the season from Bielsa. And Bielsa's loved in Leeds, but it definitely was the right call to let him go at the end. And now I think going into the season, Leeds had a ton of question marks. Like, Marsch, no one really fully knew how he was going to be in the Premier League. They lost their 2 best players in Rafinha and Calvin Phillips. And now Marsch he's done a great job at bringing in players this summer, particularly American players, which we'll get into, like Brendan Harrison and Tyler Adams, who know his system well enough. And they've really helped push it now. Like, what are we, 3 games into the season? And I don't know how well they'll finish this season. They're one of those teams too, like we mentioned, like Crystal Palace, Brighton, and Brentford, who are just like, I don't know where you kind of fall at the end of the day. Like they feel like mid-table upper challenges, I suppose, for like maybe a Conference League spot. But right now, if you're a Leeds fan, you're just thinking like, this couldn't be any better.
Enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
And like we said with Crystal Palace, consistency will be key, and we'll see how much almost endurance they have in a long season. But right now, it's just fun football. And to me, watching teams like this do well and kind of upset these top dogs, it's always a fun match to watch. And Aronson, I don't know, that's the first goal where he stripped Chelsea's goalkeeper of the ball.
Yeah.
He became the first American player to score under an American manager in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think times are definitely changing.
I'd love to hear that. I mean, I always go back to North American football, and I just think in the next 10 years there will be more respect for the North American players and now even managers coming into those positions. And it was just a sight to see. You saw how excited their manager was when Aronson got that goal.
Yeah.
Out of pure grit, just like pure hard work ethic.
Yeah, he was fun to watch. I've never watched him before. Like, admittedly, this is the first Leeds game I've watched this season. They play with so much energy.
Yeah.
And, like, Brendan Aronson is the motor.
Yeah.
Like, he gets everything pumping. And the reason he got that goal is he just didn't give up on the play. Like, he just went and challenged Mendy. And, like, it's interesting, isn't it? Like, you see all these goalies now who want to play with the ball, and it's like, well, you have to be good with the ball if you want to play with it. And he just put himself in a bad spot, and that was all Leeds needed to kind of take him, just keep running with it.
It was so funny though, Liam, because on this show when Chelsea played Tottenham, we came back to our podcast and we were like, Chelsea was so compact and tactically super sound, and defensively they played a solid game. They understood the assignment, as the kids would say these days, against Tottenham. But against Leeds, like, it just defensively, it just kind of fell apart. And to your point, you said last show or a few shows ago that Chelsea doesn't have that quintessential striker. Maybe the game would have looked different if Sterling's goal had counted in the first 15 minutes. So maybe an unfortunate run for Chelsea. But at the end of the day, that's a problem they're going to face for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it felt like Chelsea wasted all their energy last week against Tottenham. And sometimes you see this in games where the week after such a great performance, you lose to a lesser team, we'll call Leeds that. Compared to Chelsea, they definitely are. And they're the only team besides West Ham who just don't have a goal, who don't have a goal from an attacking player.
That's great. That's actually crazy.
We're 3 games into the season now, and Havertz doesn't have a goal. Sterling had one knocked off, I guess. Mason Mount doesn't have a goal, and it's just like...
Which is crazy because I feel like he played so well.
Yeah, I thought he actually had a good game. He's actually been pretty good for 3 games of the season.
Exactly. Yeah, he's been really good this season.
But it's just like, where are you getting his goals from? Like, I just don't understand what the plan is. Like, and they're talking about getting Aubameyang. It's like, is that the solution? Like, is Aubameyang really the guy you want to? You're Chelsea. Like, you just went from Lukaku and like Tammy Abraham and Timo Werner, who are all young, good players. Like, Lukaku's a little older now, I suppose, but he's an established Premier League striker. And now you want to bring in Aubameyang, who Arsenal just got rid of because he was kind of a bit of a cancer to the team. And I just don't understand where their direction is heading. And they're spending so much money, and they're just not as good as they should be, is the best way to put it, I think.
Man, I'm just so confused because after Tottenham, that game, I was thinking Tottenham would win significantly. I'm not going to, maybe like a 3-1, which I think is a significant score in football. But
I thought Tottenham were going to have them.
Yes. Yeah. And I was just I sat back. I'm like, wow, Chelsea's good. Like, I maybe didn't put enough respect on how good they are. And then now I'm just like, yikes. You know, there's some holes in their squad.
There definitely is. And so next they have Leicester at home, Southampton, and West Ham.
Must wins.
All of them. Like, they could definitely win all 3 of those games. The West Ham one is going to be interesting just to see if, like, at that point, if West Ham turned it around a little bit. One other thing I wanted to talk about for Leeds. So I looked this up, and I was just curious to see the last time they beat a significant team, because obviously they were out of the league for a while. And so last season and the season before, they didn't really have any massive wins. 2002. Obviously, they got relegated in 2004, didn't come back for a while. They beat...
Poor guys.
They beat Chelsea at home, actually. 2-0 at home in 2002. Jonathan Woodgate and James Milner got the goals. And I just thought, this team, like, I thought the atmosphere was unbelievable in that game. And it was good to see Leeds get that massive win at the time. And it's fun to watch these teams go up against the big dogs and just really give them a game.
Oh, my God.
And especially when they're at home. And I felt like the fans in Leeds were the 12th player on the pitch. Like, they just gave it to them. And my favorite part of the entire game was after the final whistle when they played I Predict a Riot by Kaiser Chiefs, and the entire stadium was just singing along. And I thought it just felt good. Like, it just felt good to, like, have all the fans there. And, like, after the last couple of years we've had, and it just felt really fun to see what went down on Saturday
100%. Speaking of fans who must be happy about their team's performance, let's go into, we got about 20 minutes left. Let's go into United versus Liverpool.
Yes.
Man, this was a game where I was like, United's unfortunately not going to beat Liverpool. Liverpool's had a tough start to the season, but at least I think that they have their shit together enough to beat this United side who is absolutely in shambles.
Yeah.
This has now been Klopp's worst ever start to a season while he's been at Liverpool. Where do we start with this entire game that's probably going to branch off into 100 different things?
We'll start with a positive, I suppose.
For United.
With United.
Okay.
First off, we've questioned Ten Hag's tactics on this show. Specifically, the way he positions his players and where everybody's playing, who's in the lineup, all this stuff. I thought it was ballsy. The second time we've used ballsy on this show.
I guess we should call it kicked back balls. Kicked back. I'm not going there, actually. Sorry, guys. We're not going to go there.
Ronaldo and Maguire both on the bench. That's your captain and the face of your organization.
Football, questionably.
Yeah, and you just went with Rashford up front and put Varane in the team, and it worked perfectly. It couldn't have got any better, to be honest.
I love Ten Hag. I've said numerous times on this show that this guy needs more time. I love that Rooney called him, which kills me. Imagine just Wayne Rooney picking up the telephone and being like, hey, Eric. He said, I wouldn't play Cristiano Ronaldo and I wouldn't play Marcus Rashford. Here's the thing that I like about Ten Hag. You could hear that and it could get in your head a little, right? I bet you any money Ten Hag's been wanting to bench Ronaldo since he's thrown his captain's ban.
Yeah.
So I think that was already in his mind, but he didn't bench Rashford.
Which I am very happy about.
Of course, because he played great, which I think he actually really needed that game under his belt too. So I think Ten Hag just needed a little bit of time, and I think the momentum from Casemiro signing to this club, the guy wasn't even on the pitch, but just the momentum of him being there, United signing a player like Casemiro, him being at Old Trafford, you saw the fans taking photos of him and being excited that he's there. That was enough to change the tide for this United team.
It was definitely an interesting vibe going into the game.
Because you thought United was going to win.
I felt like they were going to win. But the protests outside, you saw them on social media, and it's like, okay, so that's actually happening. Then you have the Casemiro thing, and then obviously just winning the game in general, but also just knowing where both teams were at going into the game. It was difficult to get a good read on what United were going to be, I suppose. But I do think, I kind of mentioned it last show, like I wonder how much the Casemiro signing affected the players too. Like we said, like knowing that this team is now trying to push up and be better. And one other thing I thought was really good was three of Ten Hag's new signings, Martinez, Malacias, and Eriksen, all played, and they all played so well. So is this, I tweeted this as well, is this the United Ten Hag team? Like, is this what it's supposed to look like? Because if it is, like, it was very fun to watch on the counter. Now, when they play teams that aren't going to, like the first two games, they had all the possession. And they couldn't figure it out. But with Liverpool had all the possession. And United, I think it was around 30 to 70% possession. And they were the better team. So is this team better just on the counter? And like when they don't have the ball, is that the way they have to play now? Like it feels that way.
Honestly, when I was watching this game, off the get, I was like, wow, United looks good. What happened?
Yeah.
That 13.8 kilometers that Ten Hag made them run worked.
I think they ran that again in the first 5 minutes.
Honestly, they looked sharp and Liverpool had no answer.
Yeah.
And then you go into Sancho's goal, which absolutely blew my mind.
Just even the build-up.
The build-up of it, Sancho cutting Milner. And you know what? Yes, Milner was trying to block his shot, but if you've played football, you never know to overcommit like that. Like, I understand what he was trying to do, but there's other ways to go around it without absolutely sliding in there. And Sancho just made him look like he's never played football a day in his life. And then having the ability to pick up his head and have like 1, 2, maybe 2.5 seconds to place the shot because no one stepped up to him. United, I think from the get, got into Liverpool's head, took control of the game, and then buried. They hit the post at some point and then buried that first goal. And at that point, Liverpool was sinking.
Yeah, the two players that scored needed it more than arguably anybody else in the Premier League, to be honest. Like, and as an England fan, England needs Rashford and Sancho to be in form going into the World Cup, and also just United in general need those two, because if those two are motoring, it just helps everybody else. Like, it just brings so much energy, so much skill to the team, and like the way the confidence change in Rashford was unbelievable from the moment he scored, and then he had that run. Like, it was a bit of a poor finish, but the ball was just kind of bouncing in his way, and he's getting through guys, and it's like, this guy needs this so bad, and I'm so happy that he was able to do that, and I hope, just for his sake, and honestly for the enjoyment of the game, just to see him get back on form and just keep motoring again, I would love to see it. And even when Martial came on the field, like,
everyone loves him,
yeah, like, he was really good, and I don't know where Ronaldo fits.
Man, Ronaldo came on the pitch and he had that crack at net. I'm like, how iconic would it be if he scored on that? Yeah. I actually would have loved to see that happen, but it's so interesting because all of the top footballers in the world right now are, just generally off the top of my head, are having really good seasons. Neymar's having a good season. Messi's back into form. Benzema, Mbappe.
Not Lukaku. Lewandowski.
Like, you just think of, like, right now when you think top footballers, these guys are in form. And then you see Cristiano Ronaldo and he's sitting on the bench ahead of right before the World Cup. What the hell is going through this guy's mind?
It is interesting, isn't it? And he said that thing the other day where he's like, all will be revealed. Yeah. And it's just cryptic. Like, what does this mean? And like, so Ten Hag did an interview yesterday too with Sky Sports, and on it, they asked him, was like, what's with Ronaldo? Like, and he's like, he said he wants to be here. And like, if Ronaldo is willing to change his game and like be that guy who sits on the bench and like be a team player, then great. But I just don't see it. Like, I just don't see him as that kind of guy. And even like you said, the shot, and yeah, it would have been iconic if he had scored, but it also felt so selfish. Like, it came on and it just, like, United have been playing as such a team this entire game, and then he comes on. I think he had 2 shots in like the 5 minutes he played, and both of them were horrible. And it's just, you gotta adapt. And it takes time, obviously, under a new manager. Like, he's obviously a great player and an all-timer, but he needs to be better for this team and not be such an individual and play with the team and not for himself. Did
you see him dodge that Sky Sports reporter?
Yo, Jamie Carragher. Yeah, that was
that
funny.
Who it was? Yeah, I didn't know. I just saw like a quick video and I'm like, wow, that's a...
Yeah. It also felt like a massive publicity stunt as well to me. Maybe. Not even the Carragher stuff, just the fact he like came over to like Gary Neville and Roy Keane. It was interesting.
Gary Neville kills me, man.
Yeah.
Going back to what you said, I think it's a good point, and I see it from both sides. I see Ronaldo being benched and him being a top 2 footballer in the world for the past decade, and him wanting to come on and be like, hey guys, remember me? I'm the guy. I can also make an impact. So I understand it from a competitive standpoint point of view that he may have, but I also understand it. Yeah, you're coming onto the field. You're taking a shot that maybe you don't even have the best angle. And does he want that goal to put United a goal up, or does he want it so it says Cristiano Ronaldo scores a goal after coming off the bench? Which you got to wonder.
And so I think there's two opposite situations that happened towards the end of the game. You had the Ronaldo one where he shoots from that angle and it's like, that was never going in. And then you get the Bruno one, where right at the end, he tried to pass it over to Van der Beek, who would have had an easy tap in. Good low start from Alisson. And then Bruno goes and chases it down and gets a cheap foul for himself. And it just shows the kind of difference in mentalities. And I honestly am not even the biggest Bruno fan. I think he's kind of an interesting player. But yesterday, the diving I didn't like. But I think that's the best game we've seen him play for a while, and it just showed what this team wants to be with the pass. And I just think that really cemented the performance as a team. And Ronaldo, for me, just didn't have that when he came on. And I hope he changes, because I love him. Yes. Like, I think he's been such a fun player to watch forever, and I want it so badly to work out with United. Just to have that like fairy tale ending. Yes. It just seems perfect, to be honest. I just don't think it's going to work.
I totally agree with you. I'm a massive Cristiano Ronaldo fan, so I want nothing more for him to, in this last stretch of his career, to find optimal success, right? Whether that's with United or not, I just hope that he finds it. But Bruno Fernandes, I do think he played really well. Even that one flick, do you remember? It was a flick that almost went in.
think so.
He like was in the box and he somehow maneuvered his foot to flick it behind him. And I'm like, that's so freaking hard to do. And the fact that he did it and he had really good passes in the game and he was running a lot, like I was impressed with him. But man, what ruins it for me, as anyone who's listened to the 6 episodes we've had so far on Kicked Back, I hate when players dive. I hate when players are being theatrical. And even his little situation with Salah. Like Salah scores the goal. I know that we don't want to give Liverpool the ball to run back to half to start the game again. But don't cover your eye like it's the end of the world. Just carry on.
I agree. Like I actually kind of liked the intensity of that moment where he was not allowing him to get the ball. Like I thought that was really good. And someone made a good point on one of the other podcasts I was listening to on the way, and it's like Salah should have really been giving it to him because Bruno was on a yellow. So if you get Bruno to respond, then he gets a red. But it was it would have been a cheap way for him to go. And I don't know if the ref would have necessarily done it, but it's good to see United have the physicality, the mentality to like be like, we want to win this game. And it's like right off the start too, like Martinez, I think he bumped, was it Milner or someone like that? And I noted this. It just felt like there was a team spirit. Yeah. And I think that's what United need. The fans were in it from the get-go. And you know what? Like any football fan will tell you this. Like they just want to see an effort. Like every week they do just, and obviously you can't put in 38 great performances every season. It's just not going to happen. But you can do your best. And I think fans appreciate that more than anything.
100%, Liam. And I think maybe this game could be a turning point for United. That was a massive game. On the flip side, you have everything Liverpool's going through. And there's one thing I'd like to say about Liverpool, and something that I don't think enough fans are talking about right now, is that I think Sadio Mane was this unsung workhorse for Liverpool. And if it's me, I'm never letting the heart of my team leave. And I'm not saying Sadio Mane would have came into that game against United and completely made a difference. Maybe he would have, but that's not the point I'm making here. The point is that I think Mane was the type of guy to have completely changed the morale around for this team. When he went to his first training session at Bayern Munich, he showed up 109 minutes prior to the session to work on his craft. He also stayed 6.5 hours after the session to continue training. If I'm his teammate and I see that, I'm following suit, because that type of mentality and attitude is contagious. So I think that Liverpool losing a guy like that, and I know that Sadio Mane said that he wanted a change to challenge him a little bit more. But if I'm Liverpool and I'm hearing that, I'm doing everything I can to keep a guy like that on my team, because that type of mentality and that type of character can't be taught and is so important when it comes to a team.
Yeah, and you need those guys, right? And
100.
Obviously Liverpool thought that they could just lose him. Not with ease, that's a bad way to put it. But the leadership call would have still been there. And I think injuries are plaguing this team so hard right now. Like that midfield yesterday was Harvey Elliott, who's a promising player, Jordan Henderson and Milner, who they're just not what they were. And it's a shame to see players kind of not fall off a cliff, because they're both still good, but they're good squad players. They're guys you can bring on for the last 10 minutes of the game who are going to close it out for you. They just don't have the legs anymore to run up and down the field and be those guys. And this team, like, Thiago is such a key player for them, and they need him back so
Yes, my dad was
bad.
saying that this morning.
And even Matip at centre back with Virgil van Dijk, there's a lot of synergy missing from the lineup right now. And if I'm a Liverpool fan, like, I'm not that worried.
No.
Like, the Fulham one, again, I think they were unexpected. Like, it wasn't expected Fulham to come out and play the way that they did. The Palace one was just a good performance by Crystal Palace. Yeah. And then this one, like we said, like the vibes were weird at Old Trafford yesterday. And the midfield just wasn't what it needed to be. And like just mistakes. But like you said, Liverpool had 70% of possession. I don't think Firmino is the guy for them at striker right now. Like obviously Nunez is suspended. Jota, I think, is right up there. Like he should be up in the lineup more often than not when he's back from injury. And they're just missing pieces. Like you have Bournemouth next week, Newcastle the week after at home. Both of those are at home. The Newcastle one will be interesting. Then you have the Merseyside derby at Everton. So that'll be September comes around, like Liverpool will be just fine. Like I wouldn't worry about it too heavily.
No, and it's the same thing we were saying about United, who was even in a worse position than Liverpool, before this most recent game. I don't think it's the end of the world. Injuries play a key factor. I wonder in my mind if Virgil van Dijk is dealing with something. We know he came back from an ACL injury. The guy's Clearly, it's obvious he does not want to go in for a tackle. I wonder if something is wrong with his knee that we just don't know about. On that note, I also don't like Milner's response to Van Dijk. I'm all about a guy on the team being a leader and a captain, and you don't have to wear an armband to be that, right? But say that in the locker room at halftime. Unless Van Dijk is like visibly being, uncalled for, that he's in his head kind of in the dumps. After that, he knows he effed up. He's a player at some point that was considered to be world class when he was up for the Ballon d'Or. I don't know if I love that from Milner, because I was just like, you see that and you almost see negativity. Yeah,
it shows, I guess, not the mentality, the atmosphere in the room, I suppose, right now. Frustration,
yeah.
That's a good way to put it. It's just, this team obviously is so used to winning. They played every single game possible last season, went to every final, and all that. And
fatigue.
I wonder if that is catching up with them a little bit. I'm just looking at the schedule here, so I listed off all of them to Everton. In the next couple of months, they play Chelsea away, Brighton at home, Arsenal away, City at home, and then that's a tough stretch of games. But also, all you need is a couple of wins there. If you beat City, if you get 2 wins from City, Arsenal, and Chelsea, you're taking points off teams that are right up there challenging for Champions League spots, and you're right back in the mix. We're only 3 games into the season.
Exactly. And that's where I'm almost like Sadio Mane might have been that guy to be like, guys, we're okay. Yeah. Let's go figure it out at training tomorrow. Sometimes you just need that guy to make it feel better, and again, that type of attitude is contagious, but we'll see. I don't think it's the end of the world for Liverpool. One thing I will say is that the pitch at Old Trafford looked luscious. So there's no way that Klopp can say the pitch was dry, because I actually was looking at that. I'm like, that might be the most rich color green I've ever seen in my life. The field maintenance team was ready for that game.
That's why the Glazers are putting the money into the pitch.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's quickly. Did you want to say something about Bayern Munich, Liam, before we head off?
Yeah, let's just talk about Bayern Munich. 7-1 win this weekend. They've
7-1 or 7-0?
7-0. Sorry, in my head I had that they had only conceded 1 goal this season.
Crazy.
People are talking about the Bundesliga and just how Bayern Munich is running away with it, and that's obviously true. However, I just don't think the league is dead like people are talking about.
Thank you.
Yes, I think the title race is done. Bayern Munich just win it. They're just going to win it every year, but I think there's so much competition within the Bundesliga itself, and it just shows. Let's talk about some of the results from the weekend alone. Borussia Dortmund had a 2-0 lead over Werder Bremen. Werder Bremen then came back and won 3-2, scoring in the 89th, 93rd, and 95 minutes. Bayer Leverkusen, who have had a tough start to the season but are a Champions League team, haven't won a game yet, but lost 3-0 at home to Hoffenheim. And then there's so many other games in there too, like Union Berlin were only promoted 2 or 3 seasons ago, beat Leipzig 2-1. And the competition within the league itself is so good. If you just kind of pull back the curtains a little bit and just push Bayern to the side, and obviously it's the best team in the league and everything, but there's a lot of talent in this league, and I think it deserves a bit more respect than it's being given. And I quite enjoy watching the league, to be honest. The teams in there are good. There's a lot of history in the Bundesliga, and it's good to have teams like Schalke and Werder Bremen back after they both got relegated, and now they're both putting up good results, like we said, the Dortmund. And October's a tough run for Bayern, and I think this will help us really know what this team's about. They have Leverkusen, who I think by that point will actually turn it around a little bit more. At home, that one is. And then they have Dortmund away, Freiburg at home, and Hoffenheim away. It's a tough run of games. And to start the season, I'm not saying it's been easy for Bayern. They won at home, they won away 6-1 to Frankfurt, and then they beat Wolfsburg. Well, both those teams are mid-table teams. The Frankfurt one was a weird one, I suppose, but they only beat Wolfsburg 2-0. And I just don't think we need to worry too much about the Bundesliga. No. I'd be more worried about La Liga, to be honest, than the Bundesliga.
I love that you just brought this up, because whenever anyone says farmers leagues, I always try and remind people it's not easy to score 7 goals against a team. It's not easy to score 15 goals in 3 games and only allow 1 against. And Bayern Munich won the Champions League in 2020. So when you say that the Bundesliga is a farmers league and that's the only reason they win, but they're able to go into the Champions League, maybe not as as of like recently, but they have in 2020, you know that this is a team that can compete. Yeah. And I bet you any money this Bayern Munich team does a pretty good job in the Champions League this year. So I love Bayern Munich. I don't hate the Bundesliga. I mean, there was rumors that Ronaldo was going to go to Borussia, which would have been crazy.
Kind of wild, yeah.
But I do think that it deserves a little bit more respect. And I hate any time there's, an achievement that Bayern Munich has, or a Bayern Munich player, for example, or even, Haaland coming from Borussia Dortmund. Everyone's just like, oh, what was the Farmers League? What was he supposed to do? That's obviously Sadio Mane is the top goal scorer in the Bundesliga because it's the Farmers League. No, it still requires effort. It's still hard. I'd love to go see these people try and do it.
Yeah. I would worry more about, I said La Liga, but also Ligue 1. Yeah. Like, I'm sure we'll talk about this on another show too, but PSG won 7-1 this weekend against Lille, who won the league 2 years ago. And it's just like, that is a statement win for PSG.
A goal and an assist in the first half for Messi. 2 goals, 3 assists for
Neymar.
In the whole game. Yeah. Messi, goal and assist. Neymar, 2 goals and 3 assists, and then a hat trick for Mbappe. I mean, I guess the drama's over.
Yeah, I was going to say, they put all that stuff to bed from last week.
Sergio Ramos, guys.
I was going to say, Ramos must have just took them all the heads together.
Could you imagine? Sergio Ramos is like, if you don't figure your shit out, I'm about to kick your ass.
We have all the best players in the world.
I know. Get over it. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's just so much to go to cover. But, I mean, what a cool job we have, Liam.
It is good.
What a cool job, because we are very, very fortunate. So Thursday, we're going to have a special guest on the show. So we'll let you guys know more on Thursday. But just exciting times for football fans ahead, because lots of stuff happening, especially in the Prem. I will say I quickly watched AC Milan play against Atalanta.
I got to watch that one still.
It wasn't the best game.
No?
It wasn't the best game. I'm like, Serie A still has some work to do to get up to, obviously a lot of work to do to get up to the Premier League, but it's good to watch these other teams in other leagues and just keep up with everything going on.
Yeah, so I like watching Serie A too, and the first week was really fun.
Yeah.
And this week, there was not a lot of goals. No, I'm excited to watch the Napoli game just because they played so entertainingly. They played Monza and won 4-0. But, yeah, what we got here? Turin, Lazio, 0-0. Atalanta, AC Milan, 1-1. Roma, 1-0. Sampdoria, Juventus, 0-0. It's like, that's not that entertaining. So,
well, yeah. It is what it is, but we've got enough of entertainment on our hands. Lots going on. All right, everyone. This has been episode 6. Of course, you guys know the drill. Talk to us in the comments. Let us know your opinions. If you agree with us, if you disagree with us, if you love us, if you hate us, you guys know the drill. All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. That's a wrap for another episode of Kicked Back, and thanks so much for listening. You can catch Caroline and Liam here every single week on Tuesdays and Thursdays to give you the latest rundown on all things football. Please don't forget to subscribe and give us a nice 5-star rating. Please and thank you. And for even more Kicked Back content, follow the 90th Minute on all your favorite social channels. See you next time.